What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and I'm dripping my britches and foaming at the mouth for season 1 of Warzone. The multiplayer in Black Ops 6 has been, for the most part, the most enjoyable multiplayer experience in a while. That's my opinion, so if you disagree, please feel free to shit on me in the comments. This is the internet, so it's to be expected. What I want to talk to you guys about in this video is a problem I foresee arising in the following weeks with the release of Warzone. Now, when you hear about an issue that will plague Warzone, I think naturally we would think it's a game-breaking one having to do with the mechanics or gameplay. And while that's very valid and these concerns are somewhat warranted, we're looking at you, Caldera, that's not the complaint I think many Warzone players are going to have. I think it's fair to say that many people only play or primarily play Warzone now. It's very similar to how back in the day, many people really only wanted to play multiplayer and could care less about campaign. I mean, even as a new Call of Duty has been released, there's still a very large population only on Warzone, just waiting to get their hands on the new content coming with Season 1. And this lingering problem, this issue I'm looking into the future to predict, is one that has to deal with primarily those players who focus on solely Warzone. Classic Prestiging is back, and I love this. It gives you a constant stream of progression, and you don't get to some max level and then have to wait 2 months for a new season in order to just keep progressing. I love starting over fresh. I love the permanent unlock tokens. I just love it. It takes me back to the old Call of Duty days. Warzone players, though, I have a feeling they will not. As you probably already know, when you prestige, you start back over at level 1, losing access to those weapons in the later levels and being forced to grind out the levels again in order to unlock some of your favorite pieces or your favorite loadouts. This, I think, will cause a stir in the Warzone community, and people haven't really thought about it yet. When you play Warzone, you may see some variety in loadouts, but truthfully, typically there isn't much. When a superior meta is found and it's hard to compete against, many people migrate over to using those weapons and those tactics. So how is all of this coming together to form this issue that I'm talking about? Well, let's look at the ASVAL, the last assault rifle you unlock, actually the last weapon in general you unlock at level 55. Let's say this weapon is overpowered and takes over the scene as one of, if not the meta weapon. Well, if you prestige, you'll be at a disadvantage for 54 levels until you can get your hands on it again. Now, this poses a problem for players all over who want to be somewhat competitive and use the competitive weapons. I know the argument could and will be used that you can just use a permanent unlock on whatever weapon is the meta for that season, but that's really unfortunate for those wanting to use it on perks or equipment, and maybe you have to use it on a later SMG so you can have the best primary and secondary. The prestiging doesn't affect multiplayer players as much when it comes to having to use meta weapons because you have a lot more viable options you can actually use from game to game. I'm not sure if the devs put all this into consideration, or maybe they have and they just plainly don't care. And at the same time, it may sound like I'm complaining, but truthfully, I don't mind this. This is part of what comes with classic prestiging. Do you want to restart, make the game a bit more difficult, and continue to progress, or are you content where you're at level-wise and want to continue to use the weapons you've earned and the loadouts that you're comfortable with? I can see the Warzone demographic who don't have the full game being upset about this and giving the devs some flack, and while I get why they will be upset, I also think this could be good for Warzone and keep the games from being oversaturated with the same 3 to 4 weapons game after game after game. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this issue below, and also let me know which mode you typically play. As always, I appreciate your guys' time, I appreciate your support, and I'm gonna see you next time. Deuces.